I'm just trying to get to the next part of my life because what I care about most, besides like myself and family and girlfriend and whatnot, is that was my mindset in high school. Is like, just let me get out of here, let me go to college, let me graduate, and I'll be happy. And
Right.
here I am, and I'm still looking towards the future because I haven't got to the final step yet, which is, however it worked out, I ended up being like the supervisor of the project, calling the shots. Because everyone kind of didn't know what they were doing. Not only was I learning the job by myself at home, um, I had clients like emailing me, yo, where's this project at? That's kind of been my mindset since day one of starting this architecture journey. Deepest moments of my life to the world.
Right here, right now. Here we go. We are live. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to this interview. It's all about trying to bridge that gap between school and then that first job. Because for many of us, school kind of gave us a great foundation, but we found that you just kind of pushed out there and then good luck. And so the purpose of these interviews is to truly find that story, that guidance, and because every person has their own story to tell. And that story today is by my great friend Tristin. And both of us went to school together, but both of us have quite a different backstory, time in school, and then after school, both of us had different jobs, and each person has their own story to tell that can be always very relatable. And so, Tristan, just starting off, what's the backstory? Like, where are you from? General upbringing? Like, what started you off?
Hmm. Well, I am from a small town called Cleburne, Texas, kind of a suburb of Fort Worth, Texas.
Doesn't matter. Let's roll.
All right, jumping
So,
back in.
backstory, Christy. Where you're from, parents, upbringing, siblings, just a gist.
Oh, yeah. So, Cleburne, small town. I was a band nerd through much of school. Um, Architecture kind of came to light, even though I didn't really understand what it was, but for some reason, I think I took like a personality job assessment test, like early high school. And it was like, you should be in a creative role, something to do with design. And it listed off all these terms. And, there's like graphic design on there, like fashion design. And then architect came up. And it kind of had, like, the word architect has a stronger, like, just sound to it, because designer's like, whatever, but architect is like this kind of elusive, strong, stoic word.
Right.
But I looked into it, and then it was like basically a person who builds buildings, and the simplest elementary terms. Architecture was sort of my goal from, I would say, like freshman year of high school was when I really charted towards that direction. And so throughout high school, I was just trying to get through that, and I've always been like a forward thinking person, which is probably not good because, like the monks tell everyone to live in the present and you'll be the happiest, which is probably true. But I feel like at this point in my life, being so young, all I have to look forward is kind of, well, not really. That's how I look at it, is like, I'm just trying to get to the next part of my life because what I care about most, besides like myself and family and girlfriend and whatnot is my career, and that's where I want to advance myself the most. So that was my mindset in high school, is like, just let me get out of here, let me go to college, let me graduate, and I'll be happy. And here
Right.
I am, and I'm still looking towards the future, because I haven't got to the final step yet, which is actually licensing, and then, what comes after that? Am I going to be happy at that point? Who knows? Maybe I'm not going to be happy till I
Right.
have my own firm and I'm at the top and like everything's settled down, and I have like 20 projects under my belt or something like that. But that's kind of been my mindset since day one of starting this architecture journey.
Right. And at that point, that's probably when those monk teachings might creep back in of, I might not need X, Y, Z, or I've actually obtained everything I wanted, but I'm still not quite. There's always more. There's always something left wanting, and I
Yeah.
found it interesting. Even the word want has two meanings. One, obviously, to desire, but then two means to lack, like left wanting. It's lacking. So we can only desire what we lack. And so it is great to be on this pursuit, but if there's no actual appreciation of the now, then we're always like so tense trying to get that next, I don't know, imaginary check mark. So you mentioned the aptitude test. What age was that at?
Mhm.
And like who or
That
what
was
inspired that?
um that was whenever I was a freshman. So what,
Mm,
15 or so? Um and I can't remember if it was required for like a certain class or if I just did it on my own. But if it was for a class, I know that most people just kind of took it as a joke and it
right.
didn't go anywhere. But
Yeah,
it
like
sort of
me.
influenced the rest of my life. So I took it very serious, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Because here's the thing, I know a lot of people, and I was friends with a lot of people in high school who never did have that moment and probably still don't have it right now. And
Mm,
they kind of just end up, you know, in a job working for Walmart or something, moving up the chain of Walmart, which it's funny. I only say that because one of my brothers or a couple of my brothers are doing that right now.
mhm.
But I mean, the goal of their life is to work a job that provides enough so that they can enjoy their life kind of outside their job. And I think that's a lot of people's goals, is to work to supplement their outside life.
Mm.
But I guess I've always kind of been a different way, and it's not like I'm unique or anything, because there's tons of people who are pursuing a job that makes them happy, and that's an integral part of their life. And so when I took that test, I was really trying to find out what that was as soon as possible and try and get on the train before it leaves the station. So that was like the very beginning step of like where I'm at today.
Right. So do you remember how you came across it, or if it was an assignment, or like
Yeah, I'm
who?
really trying to think. I know it was just some test online. I don't even think it was like cutting edge, like real psychological assessment. It was
Right.
kind of one of those generic ones, like almost as bad as the ones that you see on like Facebook. Like,
Mhm.
what are you gonna do in the future or something? But it was, I mean, accurate enough to kind of put me in the category that made sense to me. Um, and really, if I'm allowed to get super nerdy here, I've always been into video games as a kid, and playing games where I could build stuff everyone knows Minecraft. Minecraft was like a huge part of my upbringing.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, so our high school did have like an architecture course, but it was kind of a joke. I mean, the instructor was more of a construction kind of guy, and he was really
Right.
good at doing that. But the architecture design course was kind of like there was a program on the computer that we used that kind of you could put a house together pretty easily. I mean, anyone could do it. But one of the funny things is this kid brought a flash drive into class one day that had Minecraft on it that you could play just off the flash drive or whatever. And
Well,
so we would have lots of downtime in that class, and we would just all play like Minecraft together on the same like LAN server or something.
oh, cool.
But in a way, it was kind of architecture because I mean, we were building things and doing things, and it
Right.
was. I mean, it ultimately. I'd be lying if I said that like my gaming life didn't lead me towards design in some way.
Of course, of course. I'm
Yeah.
seeing how to punch with this generation now, how they've gamified construction in
Oh yeah.
many different ways, and it's still a lot on the entertainment because they aren't having to think so deeply about like structural forces or space or proportion. But still, as a kid, you get that interest. And like for myself, it was stuff like Age of Empires, Roller Coaster
Mm.
Tycoon. Those like buildable, type of of games. And that's so interesting how that played that part, but it still kind of appears with this very pivotal time. You still kind of don't know how it happened. It's like, oh, I just ended up taking this test, and then it pushed me on, and it sounds like it was from within you because all these other people also took it and more blew it off. Like, did you feel that like anxiety as a kid of like I have to figure it out and like I have to have my life chosen?
Well, okay. In high school, I wasn't like I guess the most like social. Like I in high school, a lot of the activities you're doing is like based off of social groups, and you're trying to make friends and kind of just living the high school life. But mine was like I am a band nerd, so I will socialize in that space. But other than that, I was like I said, looking forward to the future. So in kind of an arrogant way, I was like, I'm not like these other kids. I'm just trying to get to the real world already, not live in like the high school world. Which, if I was to look back, maybe I'd tell myself, "Yo, chill. We'll get there. Live like your high school life right now." And I mean, I did in some ways, but at the same time, I think I was just trying to get out and get to my life, which in my head is always the future, which is not a good thing, but that's how I operate right now.
Right. And were there any other like growing up? Were there any other design influences or construction, or were you more pulled? Do it like what built up to that moment when you saw the word architect of like, oh, that could be me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I certainly didn't have like a historic, like a architecture history uh, lesson beforehand. Like I didn't know any architects. Maybe I knew Frank Lloyd Wright, and actually, yeah, that was one of the first like because I just googled who's the most famous architect or whatever, and that would come up, and then the Falling Water would come up, and in a way, that did have a huge impact on me. Of course, that's just like anyone could look that up and be inspired by that, but not everyone like continues to pursue being an architect. So I don't know. I mean, I think I just looked at it in a way of like I got to categorize myself as soon as I can to start working toward that goal, cuz if I get in too late then I'm not going to be the best, and obviously I got to be the
Mm,
best. So I got to start this thing before everyone else has figured out what they want to do.
mm,
So just like being the early bird was my mentality, I think.
mm. Where do you think that stemmed fro- from? Was it external pressures or internal?
Definitely internal. My so one thing about my parents is like they wanted the best for me, of course, but they were not the overbearing type. They didn't even push me toward a college. They both of them have not been to college. Well, my mom's going to college right now, but
Nice.
just in their early life, my dad was just an AC technician. My mom's a stay-at-home mom most of the time. So they just wanted a good life for me. So it was kind of my own internal pressures of trying to do more than like just having a job that helps support my outside life. I wanted a job that is part of my life,
Right.
like I said before. So it, it was all internal, and no one really knew what I was doing and or why I was like pushing towards this. Like my mom was just the whole time supportive, but like not really knowing what I was pursuing at the same time. I mean, I
Right.
don't think I knew what I was pursuing
Right.
until 2 years deep in
Yeah.
architecture school. It's like, "Oh man, this is what it is."
Or even now.
Yeah. And people, they we know for sure that people go into the architecture education not knowing as well, and then they soon find out, and then they get out of there because it's not what they want. They drop out. And it's
Right.
actually, what's the number on that? Like 60% of people?
Probably even higher. It's a
Yeah,
lot. Is
two
we had
thirds of people.
like it felt like hundreds, and then we graduated with like 62. So
Yeah.
growing up, parents were more like just okay, Tristan, because you were the oldest, right?
Second oldest.
Second oldest. So basically, of like, is it six? Seven?
Yeah.
Six?
Six.
Yeah. And so being that almost oldest, you're kind of like pressed out. So did your older brother go to college, or like what was the like? I understand this feeling of wanting to get out, be better, not just work for that leisure time. But was there like a role model or like a person who went to college that like told you, or was it just all on you?
Mm. So my brother did go to college. He dropped out soon after, I think a year. So I wasn't really looking up towards
Hmm.
him. No, no shame to that.
No,
He
of course not.
dropped out and he pursued money because I mean he's good at making money, and it's what he likes to do, and he likes to have his own social life. So that's his thing.
Right.
But me being the opposite of social, I think maybe in a way I was making up for that and chasing like something that I knew I could do good at. And maybe that's, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like the main character of like this Superman comic or anything, but like I mean, in high school, it is like a social world. And if you do feel like an outsider coming from that space, you kind of need something to look towards.
Hmm.
And for me, it was looking towards the future and looking to be better by way of like skill or trade because I needed something to kind of put myself on the map. And if it wasn't my social skills, then it had to be like where my life was going from there. So to get back around to your question, I didn't really have like any superstars to look up to. Um my family's all been kind of just live your life and do the best you can for yourself. Um I didn't have like family members, doing like being a scientist or a lawyer or anything to like guide my way. I had to stumble my way through the college applications and didn't even get enough like financial support at times, but I got through somehow. So, not to like toot my own trumpet, but I feel like I did pave the way in a lot of ways
Right.
to, being this generation of a college generation. So, and I've been trying to help my younger brothers get through that because who else can really tell them how to fill up the FAFSA form or something like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just my own path that I've had to pave one step at a time,
Right.
fumbling through a lot of it.
Mm, right, because it's also quite daunting if you don't know or aren't comfortable with big schools at all. Because once it's college, once it's a university, it's a bunch of different buildings that you have to just go and walk in and be like, "Hi, I want to go here," and then they're like, "Hey, this is the science building. Go over here." But
Yeah, especially coming from Cleburne, where
mm,
it's like
right,
there's like five important buildings in the whole city. That's
right.
it.
So, what do you attribute most to that feeling a need to get out, be better, be prepared, be first?
Hmm. I think I might sound like a narcissist here or an evil person, but so Cleburne's a small town. My family themselves kind of, I mean, they did their thing. Like I said, my dad was an AC technician. My mom was stay at home. I think I just wanted to be better, and I felt like I didn't fit in with the whole grow up, get some casual job, and settle down, and
Right.
just live your life, just kind of getting by. I felt that I needed to do something more than that, or I was gonna miss out on something big.
Mm,
I mean, I read another funny thing in high school. We had to read the Great Gatsby, and most people know what that is. It's this glamorous life of this mysterious guy in New York who owns a mansion and throws these extravagant parties or whatever. I really looked up to that book for some reason, and I was obsessed with being or having money, I guess, because
mm,
I mean, I would consider my family at the time like lower middle class, so we didn't get to eat out as much. Having fast food was like a treat during the
mm,
week if we ever got it.
right.
So I mean, it was. I mean, I'm not like saying I was super unprivileged or anything, but it wasn't everything that I thought it could be. So I wanted to, I guess, make up for that by
Mm,
trying to live that life myself, a
mm.
better life. So I know you're digging for that answer. Like, what was the big spark that led you in the way? But it's like I don't know. It's I guess more of my personality that drove
Right,
me
right.
toward. Yeah.
And that is I mean, of all sparks, that's pretty much the biggest. It it kind of has to start from within, but especially how tricky the waters are of school, and then even what architecture is. It's more specialized even than do- doctors or lawyers. I mean, there's far less of us to even share the stories of what that even means, or even what it means to actually practice architecture.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how it comes from within you, and those aptitude tests are supposed to be pretty closely aligned more to personality rather than do you have rich parents or blah blah blah. Because all the circumstances ideally shouldn't matter for education. Clearly they do, but they shouldn't. Espe- and it's interesting from within you, like, what was that connection between I have to get out and find a better, and then how does that meet with architecture?
Hmm. You might have to rephrase that question.
Yeah. So I understand that need and want to go, or the okay, it's poor small town living, and it's actually as you were speaking, from what you brought up at the start of the whole monk living. It's like, well, that's actually kind of small town. It's like, well, we actually just really love family, our time. We don't need too much. We want to be able to eat and be comfortable, but all in all, we aren't exactly able to be throwing all these parties, and because there is that tipping point, because in like the great Gatsby, who for his friends really,
Hmm.
like all these people who were even at his party didn't really even know him, or even like know what he looked like, or he was so mysterious. So it is like striking that balance. But on the question, like, I understand, okay, I look around and I see one environment, and then I see others, and there's a way to get to that. Where did that interest in architecture come into play to, to have architecture be that stepping stone? Was it just that aptitude test that sparked it? And then, like, what about design spatially? Like, were you playing with Legos, or like drawing plans at an eight? These like more spatial construction involve. I'll phrase it this way: how, as a kid, did you shape your own environment?
Gotcha. So, as like before I took that aptitude test, I was always kind of I was the kid who, if you asked him what he wants to be when he grows up, I wanted to own the world basically. And not in like a villain way, but I wanted to, I mean, make the most money and do all the cool stuff I saw on TV. And I mean, and I have my littlest brother. I'm starting to see this in him because he just graduated high school, and he's like, I want to be Elon Musk, basically. Because I guess that's what little kids look up to nowadays, is
It's
Elon
not bad.
Musk. But to
He
me, it was
was.
like I want to be like James Bond or whatever, and like wear the suits and all that. I was obsessed with like the suits and all that growing up. I wanted to be, the cover of Boss Hugo or whatever, Hugo Boss and
A
all that. But
model.
um,
Model Tristy.
yeah, exactly. Um, but architecture specifically, I was always artistic as a kid. I would always like draw my grandma her birthday cards,
Oh.
and she would always like tell me, "Don't forget about me, and don't stop drawing the cards."
Oh.
And so it was always like a thing that is like I'm the artsy one, and my grandma knows it, so I must be like the best artist around. So not to be like
In all of Cleveland.
lovey-dovey or anything, but I mean, ultimately, if you do have an artistic background, you are going to be drawn to architecture, and you should, because I mean, I could have taken those ambitions of being, the James Bond guy in a suit, and I could have gone for a lawyer, doctor, anything that made a lot more money than this,
Right.
which I knew what I was kind of like statistically what I was getting into just from the aptitude test and looking up architecture, how much they make. But it didn't like deter me because once I read the description of the job, it's like, oversee the construction of skyscrapers.
Mm.
And it's like, that's what I want to do. I still want to
Mm.
do that.
Amen.
And if I could give you one moment where it really locked in and it's like, this is definitely what I'm going to do, I'll tell you that story right now. So there was this club in high school called Skills USA. Shout out to Skills USA if they're still going strong. I think they are.
Oh, they
But it's
are.
kind of like it's a student-led organization that's made for like, I want to say like trades, like blue collar trades, but they have also like things that are related to blue collar trades like architecture. And I think maybe they were more about the drafting side of architecture, but I was still like drawn towards this organization because they had like a leadership kind of branch to it to where you could like the whole thing was like you join the organization, your that's your local chapter or whatever, and then your that local chapter goes to these district competitions. If you do good at that, you progress to state competitions, and then you could even go to national. I never made it to national, but so I would do this thing as one of my outside school activities just to kind of grow myself, and I attribute this club greatly for how much better I got at public speaking a little bit. I do remember having to give some speeches, and I was terrified as a high schooler of even the thought of doing public speaking. But
Oh, yeah.
because I was running to be like a district officer, which means it was kind of you had to run your own campaign. So you had to do the speeches, you had to like hand out the ballot or the what do you call it, like candy with like your little name on it and be like vote for me. So you had to like really put yourself out there, socialize, just small talk to people, which is like the hardest thing for me to do even now. So, anyways, to get to the main part, so there's this competition called Construction, in which we did at the state level, where basically you put together. Well, you had to fundraise to get all these cans from like HEB or Walmart or Kroger or something, and you had to design this thing you wanted to make out of cans, and then at the competition in Corpus Christi, um, you had to put together, all the cans. And so I wasn't originally part of this group from our school that was doing it, but they needed someone to fill in because someone's schedule didn't work. And so I was like, oh, I'll hop in and do it. And I mean, it was just like a small team of like 3 or 4 people. And we had the day, I think it was like 6 hours to put together. For some reason, we were doing a Loch Ness monster, and it was like the ground was the water, and we had to make a arch, and like the head come up, and then the tail come out one end. But like the arch was like the hardest part because we were allowed to use cardboard and some tape, but other than that, it was just the cans. So I had to. I mean, no one exactly designed this out all the way. We had like sketches of like the Loch Ness monster, like
Right,
that's what we're
sure.
gonna do. And then we had the cans, and whoever fundraised actually accounted for the color of the cans to correspond with colors of the Loch Ness monster. So we had to like work within that. Um, so however it worked out, I ended up being like the supervisor of the project, calling the shots because everyone kind of didn't know what they were doing, and the person who I was replacing was the shot caller. So, I was just, hey, we need to throw the cardboard on this layer, and then we need to start on the outside and build the arc up, and it has to work just perfectly. And I was out there being like, calling the shots and being like this
Hey,
design supervisor. And, I was just living in the moment. It was like one of the most exciting things I did in high school. And it probably wasn't a big deal for a lot of people, but for some reason, like that feeling of like being like calling the shots, helping these people put the cans where they need to go, and at the same time evaluating like what I'm looking at and making sure that it's visually what we're going for, because the what we're going to be judged on is the visuals of this thing. And so if, sometimes cans would fall down and sometimes we needed to change it up to make it look more realistic. But like I was calling all these shots and I was like, all right. After the whole thing, I was like super happy with it. And it always just like stuck in my mind. In fact, I wrote about this. Remember in Alamati's class studio, we had to write about our deepest secret or deepest desire or some creepy thing
yeah,
like that.
our how'd you phrase it? Our secret pleasure or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
But
something like that.
nothing weird.
Yeah. Or actually, it was the story we did before that, which was something to do with high school or like one of our best memories of high school or something like that. I remember it was like a writing assignment.
Oh, our very, very first one.
Yeah.
That not even the video. It was like writing,
I think
right?
it was the one that, yeah, it kind of brought us into the deepest desire thing. I don't know. I don't remember what the point of that assignment was, but I wrote about that because that was my best memory of high school, is learning that about myself, that I could step into those shoes and have a part in some kind of building project like that.
Hey,
So,
that's beautiful.
yeah.
And what grade was that?
That was like maybe 11th grade. Yeah.
And then so that's so interesting how that fusion of just starting and being the more artsy one in the family and having your gr- grandma's like spot it out and be like, hey, you should keep this up, and grandmas obviously are the best at that. And
Mhm.
then in school, so at high school, we did not have skills. We had nothing architecture. I was at a bare bones public high school. We
No,
had,
no
yeah,
career center.
yeah, no, like we had theater and band and
Oof,
sports. That was,
dang.
I don't even think we had debates. I don't even think we had, like, it was bare bones. But this isn't about me, but so that feeling of being that construction orchestrator and and seeing that sketch come to real life, it just puts you right in that moment. That's just perfect. And I'm curious, has that replicated a lot throughout school and your work now? Or was it more like an addict whose first high was amazing, but then after,
I guess in a way you could say I got my first hit of the real stuff, and ever since I haven't got anything that good. Because in a way, in a way, I was in the exact position that I wanted to be. I mean, it was just like a little competition, but I mean, I had a vision to go off of, and we had all the ingredients in front of us. And I mean, I wasn't being like like, you know, throwing the whip or anything, but I was like part of this team. But everyone else there was kind of like, what do we do? What do we do? And someone needed to step up. And for whatever reason, I did.
hey,
Moving forward, it's like I'm always answering to the professor, or now in work, I'm answering to my higher up because I don't really have the knowledge there yet to kind of step in and be the orchestrator, like you said, which is a really good word for. architect because we are the orchestrators of this symphony called art construction.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that was the one time where I feel like I had the absolute freedom to be the person that I could be as a high schooler, you know. Now it's like I know what's at stake if I really want to get to that level of high in a figurative way. I have to be like the owner of a company, of an architecture firm, which maybe it doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way that my mind thinks. So maybe I've like built up a tolerance of like these small victories, and it's like I just want the higher, the best victory now, which is like part of that always looking towards the future, which I know is like self-destructive in the long run, but I don't know. It's like a chase that I'm part of that I can't really stop, or I'll, you know, implode or something.
Just just spontaneously combust.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. If I was to go work at Walmart or something, I'm
no.
done.
I don't see you being able to do that more than like 2 weeks without any other kind of goal or
I mean,
reason.
you and I worked delivering pizzas, and it's like I could bear that job because I knew it was temporary.
Right,
I knew I was out as soon as I graduated, and I
right.
was. I can't imagine being the other people there who have been there for 20 years. I mean, they seemed happy on the outside, at least, most of them.
Yeah, and that those were more the kinds of people in the I'm working for my time off. W- That, for whatever reason, we just don't find acceptable. And like, of course, we have and will do more grunt work, but for the most part, it's way more about being able to see a longer goal, a bigger meaning to it all, rather than just chilling. But then when you get on that chase, you kind of come back to it is kind of about just chilling, but you can't just chill. You have to also think, and like us as humans, just have to somehow operate in that dual space of I am here, but I also know I have to land because you can't build a building without. I mean, no one builds it even in a day, let alone like even a few months. It takes a lot of different specialized coordination that I think we can get that feeling of orchestrator at our level, but it just has to be on smaller ways. Like we can't exactly advise on a skyscraper at the moment, but we could on some chairs or like table or just smaller details rather than the big gigantic aspect that's tens or hundreds of billions. So skills USA really puts you more in that path, and it makes me want to a either be involved in that or our own kind of skills design competition, because kids I think need that hands-on experience, and not to like trick them and give them that first high that never comes again, because I think it will, because it just I'm seeing it in my bosses because they have the experience. They have 10, 20 years of answering questions. And so did you have that feeling of orchestration at all throughout school, or more
Um,
like submission?
Well, the thing with school is it's like an individual pursuit because something about the orchestration is that you're working as a team and like everyone's getting this gratification and you feel even more gratified because you helped bring everyone else's gratification through your leadership. And school is just like you're thrown in the rat race and you can gratify yourself, which may, work for a lot of people, but it's not the ultimate hit, that we're talking about. So, I mean, there were individual moments where it's like I really nailed that drawing in McDonald's class and it like, it showed up everyone else's. And it's like, okay, I can live off of that for a while, off of that high. But it, I think overall, I'm a good person. And the more people that are gratified, the better, not just myself. And I get gratification from other people getting, a dose of that ultimate hit as well. So it's for
So,
me, it's got to be about the other people as well, my
so
team.
your gratification is a multi-level marketing scheme?
Of course.
No, well, I absolutely understand that sparking you from that spark in others, or that pelting it off. It's just also very slippery slope to full blown audience. Perhaps you're full blown Peter Keating of, hey, what do y'all want? And I'll do that. I promise it'll be good if
Mm,
you like it, And like, I I get that's not a part of you, but then also kind of bring it up. Oh, well, if I show everybody up on this drawing, that'll get me by. And is it showing everybody else up, or are you showing up your past self?
mm,
Because if you're so focused on these other people, then your progress is only predicated on them. And so you better be around some great people, and we just aren't always, So if
yeah.
you could bring that a bit more like in yourself rather than, oh yeah, I beat then, like, because like in school, especially early on, it was clear who the artists were and then who the people who were trying to draw. Like, we had Wheat's class in the spring first year together. I definitely couldn't draw. I was learning. I still kind of am okay at it. But then that class was filled with killer artists,
Mm,
and trying to be like, why don't I draw as well as Asher or Victoria or David or on and on, like, then I wouldn't have ever done anything better. I would have quit. I would have been uninspired because theirs were just on this whole other plane of existence that I was like, oh, you can draw like that? And I let it inspire me some, but I don't want to get too bogged down on school because school already exists as an educational model, and it is crucial to explain to potential people who are interested in school what that might be like. But a lot of what it isn't spoken about is the aspect of just after graduation, because like you've stopped paying the school money, they're gonna stop answering some emails, but I feel it is like crucial to give a gist of school, and you kind of touched on it as being more submissive to like the professors and not being able to actually orchestrate as much. Did you find school to help that skill of orchestration that's so crucial, or like what skills do you think that school helped the most with?
Hmm. So the reason, and I've told you this many times, my favorite studio was the one with you and Professor Wheat, uh, because that was the first partner project we had. And maybe I'm just figuring this out as I'm saying it, but like my greatest hit came from working with others. And like, I guess it's like while I'm designing a project, maybe I have like this big revelation inside my mind. And it's like, holy crap, I just like figured out the most important secret of the universe, but only I did. And if I try and express it with someone after the fact, it's like they're listening to a crazy person just talk about,
Yeah.
whatever. But if I'm literally discovering the same thing with another person, we both get that hit at the same time. And I don't know, there's like this, maybe it's just because humans are social animals, like they always say. And maybe it's just the fact that there's two people getting the same idea in their head. And it's like the most amazing thing to each of them. Like when we discovered the Twitch having a seizure over there.
Which is?
Oh, the cameras were going off and on. That's fine.
Are they back?
But like, yeah. But with that project, when we both had, remember the big move,
Yes.
we both, I think I had it initially kind of in my mind, and I was trying to explain to you, and then you like put this trash model together, and it was like, boom, that's exactly what we wanted. And we both got it. It snapped at the same time. And so, I mean, that's what I live for.
Mm,
So
exactly.
school does allow that. I don't think a lot of students are tapping into it. I don't think have they're getting the same chemistry that we got. I mean, some are, but I don't know. There's like this thing to architecture. That's why with the conversation with AI is like you're never gonna get that little hit of dopamine or serotonin or whatever that you
Mm,
get from like feeling like you unlocked a secret of the universe through your design. Because with AI, it's like, boom, there you go. That's the hit you needed right there. And it's like, this is the fake shit right here. This ain't
amen.
real.
Because there's no like figuring it out ourselves in
Yeah.
in a way to even figure out other things. Because it's not even like A to B. It's more like Wikipedia. Oh, I found this whole page, but this page has all these other hyperlinks, and I can go find out all this other stuff. And like school does provide this in person, because the whole online school you can't get that. And I wish they did more like partner projects, and because group is tough, like half and half class, because then there's like half slackers, but partners you can hold it like accountable. It is a bit up to luck if everybody can work together, but it's all in all, it's a learning experience, and it makes the amount of projects in half. So then the professor can spend twice the amount of time on everybody. And then our final juries aren't 3 days long. They're like 1 day, because there's only 7 projects, because there's only 14 people or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and I felt we were able to push our projects a lot further, faster with the both of us, because also after we had our own little design charrettes basically daily, and then we had tasks to turn them into actual hardline drawings. It's like, okay, plans, sections, and then just boom, went off. Instead of both of us having to do everything, we split it up pretty evenly of being able to build this pretty grand model and set of drawings that neither of us would have been able to even come close to. And I am seeing that in work of, okay, because we have these 10, 12 people on, we can actually build an entire building. And then boom, it's there and it works. It's not even just a small scale model, it's a whole building with plumbing, power, and HVAC, that has a certificate of occupancy, and then it's like people are able to actually safely be here. And I find that to be a rewarding part of our job if you find the right kinds of jobs that can see whole projects through. So kind of fast forwarding through school, like I feel school should have its own focus rather than like trying to hit backstory school, and also now, but going from that moment in school of, okay, we're building bottles, graduation is upon us. How did you find that first job? What happened, and then what was that job?
So I kind of got lucky because I knew a guy, and at the time he was like, "Hey, I could maybe get you a job if you needed one," or he just said, "Yo, do you know anyone looking for a job? Because I might have something." And I was like, "Me, I guess." I wasn't too concerned with getting or finding a job like everyone else. I know the career fair happened right before graduation, and everyone was scouring to the tables trying to get, an internship as soon as possible. But I don't know. I felt like I could handle that whenever. But luckily enough, the guy was like, "Yeah, I can get you in contact with my boss." And so soon after that, I got an email and I got the job. And coming out of school, I guess I didn't really have the highest of expectations because I didn't know what the workplace was like. And so I took this interview, and the guy had some pretty basic questions. The office space looked like, I mean, I didn't have anything to go off of, but it was people on computers working. So it seemed like it was a job, and that's what I needed. So I took that job and basically got hired right out of school, maybe like a week after I graduated, which is ideal, which is what you want. And I know a lot of people don't get that. So I'm grateful that that happened at least.
So
And you
what
wanted to,
was that job? And
yeah,
if you don't mind disclosing like hours and pay even.
yeah. So um, the job was a company that would basically make prototype houses, single family production homes. That was their main focus. They marketed like we do commercial stuff as well, but not really. Maybe they had a few projects here and there, but not for us. Um, so I started. I mean, sure, I'll say it. I don't know why people like to disclose this stuff, especially from their past. But I made 16 an hour right out the gate, which is like nowadays you think it's like I can go to Chick-fil-A, probably make more than that. But it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean looking back at it, that's what 32, 36K a year, which
Pre-tax?
is, I mean, do what?
Pre-tax?
Yeah, yeah, pre-tax. So I mean, yeah, I that's the thing. with school undergrad that they really don't prepare you for is like what the like they don't hire your expectations for once you get out. And they don't there's no one to let you know what your worth is and what you should be looking for. Which I know that's an individual basis. Like you should be able to judge what your worth is the most. But coming out of school with a bachelor's, they should at least prepare you for a baseline of what you're worth in some way. But I didn't have that, and I accepted this job at 16 an hour, and I was the happiest person to just be working because my expectation was you come out of school, all right, it's time to do the grunt work to make your way up.
Right.
And I'm sure we have some people that you'll interview later down the line that came out of school with way better opportunity than that, and that was their like baseline of what they're worth. And it's you have to assess yourself and put yourself in the market straight out of school. You have to put yourself on a real economical market to assess what you're worth. And I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I'm not a money guy, I'm not a numbers guy. I do architecture. I can make pretty models for you. I can make pretty drawings, but now you're thrown into the real world, and you gotta start treating yourself how you think you're worth. And you have to, I don't know, you have to be honest about that. And maybe I was worth 16 an hour straight out of school. I didn't even know the program that they wanted me to use. They had to train me on it, which I'm grateful for. Because I feel like as soon as I got that training, I got to put that on my resume. I was worth like double that amount.
Right.
And maybe I was, because the next job I took outside of that company was about double that, which is crazy. But yeah,
So,
that's what I started out doing.
so what was then that first position? What was that day to day like? Because
Yeah,
it's
so
sounds like getting the job was quite fortunate. Guy just kind of walks in and is like, "Hey, who wants the job?" They
yeah,
me, and then they hired you. And it
yeah.
that seemed like a pretty um frictionless experience, especially because of how open you were to being like, "No, I'll just get out there, and whatever happens, happens." And then I know I won't be here forever. But what was that day to day like? How long were you doing it? Were you at the same position? Because
Mm.
first off, how long were you at that first job?
Well, I was at that company for about 2 years.
2 years.
I did have two positions in that company, and we'll get into that because that's the juicy stuff right there. So, day to day, first day I take this job, boom, look at this IRC code basically for residential, and start researching. And I was like super pumped. I'm like, yes, I'm learning stuff. I'm getting into actual code. We're gonna, be designing houses. Get done with my training, Revit training. Got to get that down so we know what to do. And I was like, yes, I'm learning this new tool. And then I'm finally given my first assignment, and it's like, there's this house that's already made. Everything's all documented out. There's just a couple red lines we need you to do. And it's like, go change the spelling of this word. Go tag the trim that someone else forgot to tag. This is your job for the next few months. And it wasn't all that bad. But basically, I mean, this firm just needed us to be the grunts of something that in 5 years AI is going to be doing.
Right.
They're it's going to be putting together. It's going to be checking spelling and making sure everything's tagged. And it was baseline stuff, but it was stuff that I had never really done for a real project before. So I accepted it for a while. Maybe at the 6 month mark, it I started to get kind of beat down by it. It's like, man,
Hmm.
I'm not even coming up with anything. I'm like taking these sets that are just about done. They're modeled in the computer. All I have to do is like add some annotation to it now. And it's
Right.
like, this isn't really what I wanted to do with my life.
Right.
And a lot of people, I'll tell you, there was some pretty old people doing the same position that I was doing. And they're like, yeah, I've been here like 8 years. And they're doing the same thing that I'm doing. And it's like, granted, these people, a lot of people at that firm didn't have college degrees in architecture, at least. Some of them were just decent draftsmen, and that's all you needed to be to work that job. It was a
Right.
drafting job.
Right.
So, which is completely different because there's trade schools if you want to learn drafting. I
Right.
mean, you can do that. You can get certificates in it. I remember this one guy at that firm was um, boasting because he was about to take a certification for some kind of Revit thing. I was like, that's awesome, dude.
Right.
You do that. But I have an architecture degree.
Right.
So
And
my complicitness for that job did not last very long. Yeah.
yeah, I can. It's especially after everything you laid out about who you are and everything you've done and where you came from. It's like that's not gonna last. I mean, I'm kind of surprised the last 6 months, but also at a new job
Well, it
that can
lasted
kind of
longer.
fly by. What?
It lasted longer. 6 months was just like when I started to get
Oh,
fed
to
up.
be part.
And
So, how many hours were they having you work?
so, of course, there's 40 as the baseline, but this company was very high and busy. It was a quantitative job, which means there's just projects flying through constantly. So, most of the time, God, this is when I say when you don't have expectations, you can really like damage yourself or just put yourself out there to be damaged. Because this company was like, yeah, overtime is mandatory here. Like, you have to do 50 hours this week because we just have an overload of work and we're not going to deal with hiring people because, next week there won't be as much work or something like that. And I mean, I was a young dude, and a lot of us were young dudes. So we were up for it. It was more money in our pocket. We got paid the overtime rate. So there's nothing wrong with that. Plus, in architecture, you have to have your hours to get licensed at some point. So I was earning hours on that as well, more
Right.
hours than you would normally. So I was all happy to do it, but I can't see myself doing or being forced to do that. I would definitely still work overtime sometimes, but there it was like a lot of the time.
Mm.
And going into my next job at that company, it was even worse. If we want to jump into that.
Right. So, how did that transition happen between that
Yeah, this
first?
was crazy. Can I tell you that it started with a dream?
It was all a dream. Used to read Word Up
No,
magazine.
I will tell you that. So within the company, we had a department called it was called the marketing department for some reason, but it was our rendering department, basically our visualization department. Um, and the guy who ran it, it was a small team of like 7 people, one team lead, I guess. The guy was leaving, and he was leaving because he was upset at the company for some reason I can't remember, but that reason would be probably the same reason that I had left that job soon after I took it. Uh, so, and I said it came from a dream because like a week before this guy left the job, I had a dream that he was part of for some reason. There goes the battery. Uh, yeah, and so it was really like coincidental, and I didn't even know the guy really. We barely talked, um, but so for some reason, I think I kind of made a name of myself at a very small scale at that company, because our group lead kind of respected me. He said, "Yo, you really like took off with the training, and I feel like you're ahead of the group that you started with, because I had started with like four other new people. Two of them like left 3 weeks in or something, and so he kind of saw like some loyalty with me there, and I got like a raise that I asked for 3 months in, because the employee manual said that it may be considered. It was like in the fine text. And so I had to like find it and bring it to him, be like, hey, it says I might be considered. So could I get a raise at the 3 month mark? And he's like, oh, that's not really, I mean, it's not really a thing, but hey, I'll put in a word. And I got it somehow. And so I told him, hey, if I mean, to justify for this raise, if there's like an extra responsibility that comes up, you can consider me for the first person to take it. So I don't know if it was that conversation that prompted them coming to me, some kid like straight out of college, maybe 9 months before. But they're like, "Hey, we need you. Do you want to interview for this position that's open?" And it was the team lead for the visualization department. And I mean, I was super scared, totally not looking for a leadership position at the time, a management position.
Because
But
how
my first,
far in was this? Like 8 months?
this was
A year?
um, maybe a year and a couple months in. Um, Actually, to to go back a little bit, I was ready to leave the company at this point, mostly because the company was treating us like children, and they put in this no headphone policy, which was a really big deal for me at the time, because the headphones were the only thing that got me through this job at some point. Just listening, I mean, I had to cope somehow with just doing this mindless robot work all day.
Right. Over and over.
And yeah, and this company just didn't trust us with headphones anymore. So it's like, you guys, and man, compared to the job I have now, I can't believe like I let this company like get away with this with me, because it was a bigger company, so you're going to get the corporate feel with it. Like, they have to treat you like a member of the mob or something. It's kind of like how principals treat high schoolers. It's like, we got to round them up and make them, eat their vegetables. So we were treated like this way. And so I was ready to leave. I was searching. I applied a lot of places, but nothing really stuck. And then this opportunity came up, and I was terrified, but I said like yes instantly, because, um, oh yeah, Vanessa said there were cameras. Yeah, no cell phones out. They had this quiet morning policy where I think it was the first 3 or 4 hours of the day you can't talk to anyone. It was for your own meditative purposes to get into the day, which is weird, because who's to say I'm not talking about the project or something?
Right.
But yeah, it was like a big corporate job, which doesn't really work for the design mindset, the architecture mindset. That's why there's firms and companies, and firms are a totally different environment. I didn't mention that this company was primarily a engineering company that has an architecture branch kind of added to it. So the owner of the company has that kind of mindset of like, this is a company, we're doing a service for these really large clients to make money, basically. We don't, I mean, the design stuff is cool. That's another, revenue coming into the business. But they were the ones running the rules for the whole company. So we got treated like the rest, basically.
That
Um,
sounds like a factory floor
yeah.
more than an architectural.
I mean, it was. We're just like we're on the factory line of, and our position happens to come with Revit, and all we're doing is passing along these buildings that are already on the factory line. And it's like all we do is check the red lines and maybe
Right.
model a few things here and there, but it's all part of the factory. So I was ready to leave. I got this offer. For whatever reason, they decided it was a good idea to just hire me out of the blue or promote me out of the blue for this job that I really wasn't prepared for. And to add on top of that, so I did get like a week of training, but COVID hit this same week of training, and the whole company was going to go work from home mode.
Mm.
And that meant that the guy that was training me basically said, hasta la vista, I'm not going to finish this training. He gave me his number. He's like, if you have any questions, you can text me. And I used the hell out of that number because I went from grunt work. I don't have to talk to anyone all day. I can have my headphones on, which was kind of a nice place to be sometimes. But now I'm a manager and I have to talk to clients and I have to run a team of some people.
Some people. How
They
many
they were
people?
not architecture people. They were from the 3D artists background.
Mm.
They were a lot of them just wanted to be video game designers, which
Oh,
is awesome.
yeah.
But they were stuck in a job that was just mind numbing to them for sure. If it was mind numbing to us, it was definitely mind numbing to them who are pure artists and they were stuck doing houses all day. So, what was it that you asked?
How big was that team?
Oh, so it was like 7 people. So it wasn't anything crazy,
But still, it's
but
7
I
more than
mean,
you.
yeah, yeah. And I was the youngest guy of this whole group. So imagine trying to boss around these older guys.
How old?
They were still pretty young. Most of them were pretty young. There was maybe a couple that were over 30, which is like me trying to boss around my dad. Kind of weird, but
Right.
that's what I had to do now. And it was a lot. I was not in good mental health trying to learn that job because what they left me with was when you're a manager, you get like this program where you can keep count of like all the jobs coming through. And we were basically like 3 weeks behind in what we should have been because each job that comes through, let's say they need a house to be rendered and put on a brochure, we have a week turnaround that we guarantee the customer. And when I took this over and the guy left and left me to teach the job to myself, we were 3 weeks behind. So we had 3 weeks of projects that should have been out to the client already. And so not only was I learning the job by myself at home, I had clients like emailing me, where's this project at? And keep in mind, I'm coming into this kind of not knowing anything about the job or even the work that these guys were doing. I got like a week introduction to it. So I barely knew how to do any of it. I could tell my guys how to do it, but that's me emailing or talking on Teams now that I'm at home with these people that I barely got an introduction to, my team, who probably don't, I mean, there's no like respect there because who am I to like come take over the team? They were good lads about it. But yeah, but it was just really rough. And the roughest 6 months of my life, basically, I caught the team up, or I caught our department up in about a month, maybe 2 months. So, but the whole time before that, upper management, the director of architecture and the president of the company herself was hounding me about fixing this problem we had of 3 weeks of being behind. And it was just awful. And so this was my introduction to a management position. And this is what I thought it was. And so I I and I was so disabled because I didn't know how to do the job that my guys were doing. And so I just felt like I was the boss and just telling people what to do. And granted, that's all the time I had to do. Like I didn't really have time to jump on the production because there's so many duties related with just making sure your team's doing the right thing, getting back to clients on time, reviewing and redlining. I mean, the QA QC is all me at that point. We didn't have a very structured department. That was the thing with that department. Everything was kind of run, um, what do you call it? Improv by the former manager. So I was kind of taking over something that didn't really have structure to it. I had to kind of I mean, there wasn't a training sheet for, I had to hire a new guy at some point, and it's like, how do we teach this guy what to do? And I was like, thank God I at least have people who can, like, he can shadow and they know what they're doing, so they'll teach him. But like, there's no like structure to this thing. So, oh man, I could go on and on about this job because it's such like a pivotal part in my life. And I know you guys, the only thing that you guys heard of it was me like bragging that I was a manager at the time. But that wasn't all like, you know, all that it seemed, because it was for a company that I didn't really respect, and I didn't plan to like be there all the time. But after 6 months of that job, I quit, and it wasn't like the easiest thing, and it wasn't the most peaceful thing either, because it was kind of in a bout of anger and just exhaustion and mental exhaustion, because I was not in the right place mentally to
Wow.
like continue that job.
Yeah, it's sounds
And
like
it
it.
was it was already kind of stewing in my mind, like I wasn't going to be there forever, even in a management position, which people would consider an awesome thing to have when you're a year out of school. I wasn't really satisfied with it because it was doing, I mean, the work overall that you're doing, for me, it has to be meaningful. And running a production line for production homes for 9 hours, sometimes 10 hours a day, is not worth it. And and I did get like a huge like raise with that promotion. So I mean, there was that to like hold me through for a while, but as soon as you take a salary, you don't get like overtime pay. So that was like a huge thing as well. Like
Right.
I'm here 60 hours a week, and it's just crushing because I'm having to pick up the slack from this last guy, and oh, a lot of stuff. So I
Yeah.
quit that job.
Yeah.
They really wanted, sorry, they wanted me to reconsider, because the main guy, the guy who hired me in the architecture department, was really like my ally the whole time. Uh, Shout out to LV. We got to have him some, cool dude. But
Yeah.
um, he was the one who had to basically see me off as well. For some reason, they made him handle me leaving. They thought I was like crazy for some reason. Kind of, yeah, because I didn't exactly leave on the quietest terms. That's a whole story in itself, but the president of the company did not like me very much after that. Even with that, though, they offered me like some kind of management position on the architecture department because they're like, "Hey, we understand you're from architecture, you're leading like a group of guys in something that you don't really know much about. So we forgive you and you can take this other job and you'll keep the same pay and all that." But I just wanted to cut clean from that company. So I did.
Right.
And that followed up with 6 months of being unemployed during COVID, which was not too different from a lot of the country. But um, I went to Colorado like 3 times. I went to California to visit yours truly,
Yeah.
the bro over there.
Yeah.
I think we were both unemployed at that time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we were.
and I went soul searching
Mm.
until I found an actual job with actual good people. And it was an actual studio environment or firm environment. And it was
Mm.
great. I feel like I got saved. I feel
Right.
like I was in a toxic relationship for 2 years, and then I came out and found an actual good person.
Mm. Right. So packing up a touch on it, what
Yep.
were the main aspects that forced you out of that job?
Oh man,
Like, what made
the
it
main
so
one,
crushing?
the main one overall was just the company itself. I think the mission wasn't. I, I'm one of those people that it has to all come together, and it has to be an agreement with what my values are. A lot of people will like, the mission of the company was to make money. I mean, I don't care what the website says. I being up there in the middle management position and having the upper management people yell at me all day. I mean that tells you what the goal of the company is. They wanted to make as much money as they could.
Mm.
And some people just take the job and just keep doing it every day and they don't care about that aspect of it. But if you're trying to move up through a company and you don't agree with what they're doing, then it's not going to work out. I don't think, unless you're just lying to yourself or lying to them to get through the day. So that's the one thing overall.
Mm.
The people is the second issue. And it's not the people I was working with every day. It's not the people below me. It wasn't the people around me. It was mostly the upper management people, the people telling me what to do. Um, and just the way that the company treated its employees overall. Like I said, like principals treating high schoolers, kind of this authoritative, we know
Mm.
what's best for you thing. And since a few of you are spoiled eggs, then we're gonna, you know, discipline the whole batch. So I didn't really like that. Sure, that's what you got to do with corporate companies, but I
Mm.
mean, we're future architects. We're not like Walmart employees or something. I keep going to
Exactly.
Walmart, but
Yeah,
um,
we aren't in this solely just for the business of architecture and construction. And frankly, if you're in this business to make money, they picked one of the hardest parts. And they might as well have been like a contractor or something and like, actually built stuff. And then that's a much bigger clip rather than. I mean, I'm sure they got paid because it was what like 100 or 200 people in the firm, right? So they had to get some payment to pick that payroll, but that's so spot on of if the mission truly isn't aligned with yourself, you won't be able to put in extra hours and because seems like no matter what, you were gone. And then, okay, they tempted me back in with plenty, and I've been like kind of born, especially once we're working 5, 6, 7, 10 years. That's when the money can become very enticing to do a bunch of bullshit. But it's like, no, you have the experience to do it, but also hopefully the experience to say no and to be able to branch out and not solely rely on these gigantic corporate architectural fees, because there's just many different models of approaching this. So you basically get burned out. COVID adds on it because you're having to learn remotely, but then you already kind of gone as it was, and only lasted about 6 months. Probably one of the only people to quit their job in COVID,
Mm.
and then just kind of figure it out. But that is one aspect that I do appreciate in you, that will all put up with it, but not for longer than I deem
Yeah.
required. Like, you understand, okay, there's grunts work, there is hard work to be done, but that meaning really has to be there. So since coming out of COVID and finding that other job, which you explained, I believe, as like a breath of fresh air, and so explain that complete difference. First, how did you get that job? What was that interview process like? And then into what that job actually was.
So I have to attribute this next job to you because you taught me the Google Maps method.
Hey.
And it's really simple. All you do is go to the area that you plan to work in, or commute to or whatever, and type in on Google Maps architecture firms or whichever job you're looking for, and it'll populate. And the more you zoom in, the more it'll populate. So it'll give you like the top ones on a zoomed out view, HKS, HDR, all the big ones in Dallas that I was looking at. I exhaustively like went through every single one and kind of in desperation just applying to every single one.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about these big firms is unless you have a reference, it's going to be really rough to get in. Especially, I don't know if they really look at it or not, but this was 6 months after not having a job, which it was during COVID, so that was probably the deal for a lot of people. But so I found it just in uptown Dallas, just going through on Google Maps, and it was a small firm that I had to like email to. There wasn't an application. I just sent them my resume, and they were interested. They even asked me like, "How'd you find this firm?" And I was like, "Oh, this is really cool method my friend taught me. You just go on Google," and they thought it was like the funniest thing ever.
Hey, it
So
works.
yeah, it did, and I mean, it. The interview was great. The guy was great. He's
What
an
kind of
architect.
style of interview was it?
Um, it was pretty relaxed. He just had me this morning come into the office during COVID and everything. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm finally getting out. I don't want to do this online thing because I had done them before that and it was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Not the same, but came in. I talked to the owner of the company, not grunt HR officer or whatever, which is cool for big companies. But this was like a 12-man operation at the time, and I mean, the dude is like a great speaker, great at connecting with people, great at giving the vision for the firm because this was like senior living. And before I joined this firm, I was like, oh, I'm going to design like places where old people go to die. which is terrible. But that's not what it is. I mean, that's what what's the other term? Um,
Hospice.
yeah, that's what that is. But senior living is like, and he explained just the philosophy of the firm. And he told me all these stories of these testimonials of people who have used the facilities that they've made, and it's like, holy cow! He turned like this this thing in my mind that was like, I don't really want to. I mean, maybe I'll do like senior living design, but he was like, yeah, I mean, we're making like resort people, and it's like, all right, I'm in. He sold me. So plus the firm itself, I got a little office, and I mean, people were like on the phones, they were talking, they were doing all this interesting work from what I could tell, and it's like, this is
It
a
had
real
life
firm
to
right
it.
here. Do what?
It had life to it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it seemed like they were living and not zombie
Yeah, just like
computer work.
because
Jeez, yeah.
I Pepper went into the office of your first job, but one thing we kind of glazed over is like, I don't know what, 5, 6, 10 people from our class went to that same place, and they all. I mean, that was probably a nice aspect of still some camaraderie.
Oh yeah.
That ping pong table, you could like at least have a little fun, even
Yeah.
though it is like corporate, like, hey, we're having fun, yeah, now back to
Yeah.
it. But still, just being able to beyond that grind more so than actually being able to breathe life into it. Have you ever watched Arrested Development?
Yeah.
All of it?
Maybe most of it.
So it basically came out in like 2 or 3 parts. They had the first version and like the first 3 seasons, but then the last 2 or 3 were produced by Netflix, and in it maybe is pretending to be an old person at an old person's home. And I bring it up because the design of it is more resort style, but what's funny is the front office looks like death. It's a big deterrent for anybody not old,
Mm.
But then in the actual living spaces, it has like a pond and a river and a bunch of greenery. It's just very lush, and it's all just to keep young people out. And I
That's funny.
just
Great show.
yeah, yeah. But so that's the firm that you are at now, right?
Right.
Right.
My savior.
Your savior. For now, do they know your future plans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be real hard leaving, but yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
So that's better than, because probably at the last job, leaving kind of abruptly is what upset some people. But you still
Yeah.
gave them like 2 weeks, right?
Oh, dude.
Or
I gave him
more?
2 weeks, and it ended up staying 3 weeks. Just
Right.
train my team to take over for when I left because there was no plan for that.
Right. And that's just standard. Like, I don't know why they would be and up in arms. Like you could just stop coming in. It's like, yes, you
Yeah.
have that moral duty, but in also terms, like, they could just fire you. So it's like, well, you could just stop coming in. Then what would they do? So giving them 50% more time than even standard. It's like they should be like, okay, well, it sucks, you have to go, but you aren't a slave or a servant or anything. Like, we don't own you. Like
I
you
think it was just one guy that kept me there. or there's one guy kind of on my side, and that's who I already mentioned, kind
Right.
of helping me
So,
through.
mhm,
And he's the guy who had to like ultimately like see me out because they just didn't want to deal with me anymore.
that's funny.
it's it's like it's like if like in high school or something when you have friends and you have some beef with one friend and then the other friends have to like get you too cool again. Except we weren't cool again. They just like got me out of there basically.
That's funny.
Just the way that that company worked was like not adult like, I guess I would say.
Yeah, it as much as a business as they wanted to be, it sounded quite emotional. But putting back to like right now, so what is that role now? The interview seemed quite casual and even inspiring with speaking actually to the owner. He has a true purpose for the firm and true vision rather than as much money as possible, because like money, it has to obviously come to make the business work, but if you do better work then you'll get more. It's not just about making them post right now either. and
Right.
and so if the interview was quite casual, like, so did they give you an offer immediately? Was it an email? Was it written out? And how much was that, if you don't mind?
I think it was um it was in an email follow up, and I think they did kind of ask me what I was leaning towards, and which was so another thing that graduates have to deal with is like naming their own price for themselves and knowing your worth.
Right.
That's like that's a phrase that we always kick around to each other.
Know
It's
your
know your worth.
worth. Know it.
It's like holy cow! Like, do I just start off with 80K or do I have
$7 million
to
a
be
year.
serious about it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came from that management position at the other job was 50K. So I came from that, which was a good amount for someone out of school. It wasn't the best amount because I knew friends that were, um, what do you call it, lower positions that were making more than that.
Right.
I
I'll
was
be
making
right back.
50K at doing management. So I'm gonna talk to Monty's chair here. Um, guess I'll make sure he doesn't miss anything. How far behind is our stream?
I'm back.
What's up? What's up? Man, our Twitch is like 10 seconds behind or something.
Yeah. It's 6 to 3 or 4. Oh no, it's like a good bit behind.
Oh, that's fine.
Still like
Um,
9 MP, not even there.
what was the question?
My bad, bro. So,
50K at my old company. So they asked me to name my price, which
yeah,
was a wild idea to me. So I just decided to go a little bit more than 50. And they were like, yep, that works. Like without any hesitation or any kind of negotiating.
mm,
So I probably could have got more.
right,
But you don't know that until you know. So the guy, he had me in again. I think there was a second like interview. No, that was the first day of work. They kind of ran me through the office and talked to me about like different projects they were doing, and I met with project managers, and they put me to work like right away. I think the first thing I was doing was designing unit plans for a project that was happening at the time. Like I think it was right out of SD and it was taken off. And I was like, wow, this is the best thing ever. I'm making unit plans.
right. But um,
And from there, it's been nothing but good. I mean, the people working there, I felt so
Um,
out of place because there was no
I
new
think we
people.
froze.
Yeah, I mean, I felt weird because they were all on the
Can
phone.
you hear me, Tristan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we froze?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know what's up with. I think we're back. Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah, it's back. Just had to like refresh it. It was lagging some, and
Yeah,
whatever reason.
there we go. Yeah, but all these people in this firm were like making phone calls to vendors and clients and consultants. And I was like, dude, this is a real architecture firm. We good?
Yeah. So mm, it cut out basically ap- after you mentioned it was 50. Okay, so did you ask for the same salary?
No, I
How
went a
much
little
more?
higher. Maybe 54 if we really want to get into like the numbers. I
Right,
think it
and
was.
I think this is one of the biggest areas of blind spots for people. What is that interview like, and what is the price point? What is the market now? Because even us being out of school, as much as I wanted and probably should have asked y'all, I also felt uncomfortable being like, well, what are y'all? I mean, I kind of knew what y'all were, but me also being out here in California, like it's just prices are all different. So like even equating anything, it's like inflation, even state to state. It's like, well, my 60 here is like actually 45 there. So like the 60 doesn't look like 60 because it's like there's other costs as well
Yeah.
that like just all add up. And just I wonder how we can build that network of especially people just out of school who just don't know the interview process, the price point, and then even what to kind of expect, or even what questions to ask to know what kind of a job that they are getting into. Because
Right.
j- they don't necessarily tell you what your day to day is like, and definitely in the job applications, they just put a bunch of qualifications. They don't actually often say what that role actually is like, and like the main questions: what part of this architectural process am I involved in? Is it the entire thing? Am I interacting with clients at all? With engineers? With the contractor? With the city? Or am I just picking up bread lines? Is there a person walking me through this process? Because every permit in every place takes basically a lawyer to like get you through it. Not an actual lawyer, but a knowledge of the code and the planning standards, which is law. So we have to do that kind of a research. So you mentioned how you took that project from SD basically all the way through. What's this role really been like, and have you been a part of completed projects yet?
Okay. So I would say if you're looking at the basic structure of an architecture firm team, it's like you have your project manager and then under them like project architects. And that's kind of the team. I mean, that's all you have right there. I was kind of
Maybe define those roles a little more.
yeah. So project managers at my firm, they kind of do everything with the project besides acquire it. I mean, they even help like write the proposal to acquire it. I mean, they're really involved in the process and with the client. But they're like setting the schedule, um, getting the consultants, setting meetings with the consultants. They do a lot of the coordination themselves. Sometimes um, it's really like big picture stuff. Our PMs, I mean, our teams were so small at this firm that PMs got to do like site plan work and even some floor plan work. But usually they're just like big picture. And then they're project architects who are, they should be licensed to have that title. I know a lot of firms don't do that, but they should have a license and they should know a lot about building construction because these are the guys. The what? The project architect. PAs. Right. Yeah, both of them should be like. I mean, it's better the more licenses you have. But these guys at my firm, I know a lot of them aren't licensed, but they've been working so long, and I think they're okay not being licensed because they are part of this group that functions without them needing a license. And they're good at what they do, and they've been doing it for so long. So it's just like not really a concern to them. But I know in school we learn project architects to even have that in your name in your title. You have to have a license. You have to be a licensed architect. So I mean, it's a little weird how they do it nowadays. They kind of throw the word architect around, but it's a legal definition. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's all just determined on like how the state sees it. So like Texas could be more strict about that than California or something. So Mm. Legally, you can't use the word at all. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. My job, I used to call it I'm an architectural designer, but since learning that, I've changed it to like project designer. I mean, it's it, the title doesn't really. I mean, the people in future interviews are going to ask you, "What did you do for this job?" Regardless of what the title is. So that's when you have to step in and tell them what you did. So it's funny because I thought I was an intern in this
Mm-hmm.
position because I was just like the one young guy at the office, and they gave me like this. After a year, they gave me a performance review, and on there's like a section or like position title, and I was like, "Hey, what am I exactly?" Because no one really told me, and I was like, "Am I just a an intern here?" And the guy was like, "Oh no, you do way more than an intern. You're not an intern here." I
Right.
was like, "Okay," and he never really answered my question of what to put down, but he's like, "You're
Right.
not."
It's like, well, what does that mean? What am I? Please,
Yeah,
tell me because
that's one thing
and
about our field that doesn't really like define like once you get out of school, like the entry level, like what are we? We just assistants to the PAs,
right.
assistant to
B-
the designer.
Basically, we are a gopher and like, hey, here, try and learn. All of my bosses have been like, it takes 6 months, a year to actually start making money off of you.
Mhm.
And so, and a part of that is largely true, but also our industry has split them up intentionally. So that hopefully the people in charge are mentoring and understand that they have to give that guidance of all of it, and like we just don't know what we don't know.
Mhm.
And in this role now, what part of the process are you in? Are you in the whole thing? Are you like speaking with clients or going on construction? Because I don't think it was fully answered. Of like, have you been a part of a completed project as well?
So the first project that I did or started on, I got to see all the way through to construction at admin. So, and it's out in Arizona. The thing is that I'm kind of sad about is that I started going back to school the same time that I started this job. So I've like been bouncing back between a what do you call it, a part time and a full time, kind of full time during the summers and break. So they haven't like put me on uh, projects for the long term. Basically, I've kind of had to just jump from team to team to help wherever I can. Some projects are in DD phase, some are at the very beginning, some are just being detailed out in CD. So I've kind of been, especially during school, I've kind of been the guy that they can take when they need extra manpower on something. Um, and I mean that, yeah, that's kind of how it's been. I know when I started out, I got like a whole summer to see a project from SD to CA basically. And then they give me little opportunities here and there because they are invested in my education. They'll just like let me go out to a Fort Worth site on a project that I wasn't even part of, but they let me go out with the PA to see what the site visit process is like, which is another
Mm,
reason I love this firm because I mean they're doing it for another reason than money because they're losing money sending me out on a site visit where I'm just kind of just shadowing the PA. But that's what I mean, that's what a firm should do if you're willing to hire a younger person and you want some younger perspectives on your team. You got to cultivate them a bit.
right. And Penny just focus on one or a small aspect, and so they were quite flexible about you going back to school and staying.
Oh yeah.
Nice. And
They I mean they weren't totally like happy with it. I mean they weren't upset about it, but at one point they were like, "You know, you don't really need a license to be successful." And one of them told me about the way to get around going back to school to get the license. Like, okay, I mean, well, I appreciate it, but I mean, this is kind of what I've set out to do. And
right.
I told the guy when I first interviewed, I'm already bound on going back to school. Is that okay? And he was cool with it. God, but yeah, they've been
Mm,
great.
Right, and being straight up, and it's sounds like they've helped prepared you in a lot of ways, but still as much as they can, because it just takes a lot of time and so many projects under our own belts. We even know a better way of approaching the way it is. And as this job like basically props up, I don't really want to cross over too much about having to work and be in school, because that probably
Mhm.
had its own challenges. But this is more about trying to find that right job for the future. And in the experience you've had both in school and working so far, what aspects have worked, what don't, and as we begin to craft our careers, because we'll still have more interviews, whether it's with people hiring us for our actual job or a full-blown project. Like, we'll still have to have this ability to dialogue, and I kind of want to focus right now on, like, where was school lacking, and how did they not prepare? Because we spoke a bunch about being in that moment and being able to bring an idea to life, but the whole part of it, jobs, search, enter, doing on and on. Like, where did school not actually give you the proper education to find that job? Or
Mm,
more so, actually, what do you wish you were taught?
probably, I don't expect school to give you the practical knowledge or the technical knowledge or the skills that you need to do a job. Um, I think if it can set you up to go into a job or into an interview and sell yourself, and I mean, not even that, but like being able to communicate with other design professionals in a professional setting is the most important skill you can have coming straight out of school. Being open and willing to assist your mentor as much as you can, and having the know-how how to even ask what the question is. Like, you're going to have tons of thousands of questions learning this profession, and the top skill you need to have is to learn how to ask the questions, I think, because they they got out of school, it could be decades before in the past, and so they may have forgotten what it's like being fresh in the field and knowing what to ask, especially with, like, you throw in the variables of like all these new softwares, and now there's like, double the questions, and there's like real technical questions, and then there's more broad questions. And so they don't remember what you don't know. Like, they're not going to know that you don't know how to do something. And so, and you don't want to be quiet about it, because you'll miss the opportunity to learn it, and you'll either never be considered for doing that task. Let's say they never give you the opportunity to help design the facade of a building, and you never speak up about it, you never question them, or so you either do a bad job at designing the facade of the building, and then they're like, "Ooh, we didn't like your design. We're just going to quietly not have you do that ever again." Or you're just going to miss out on doing it altogether. So that's my thing. I mean, the technical skills will come. You can do that yourself on the side if you get good at it. A lot of people do. But knowing how to communicate with other people, and don't take a job right out the gate, that's at home.
Right, right.
don't don't do that, because in the office, I mean, being there that first day and hearing all these people on the phone, just the way they speak, you can pick up on it and you can learn it just by being there, being present.
Amen.
I mean, Monty, you had that one experience with your dad. just being in the office and kind of helping out.
Right.
I mean, that was like probably the best experience you could get straight out of school, was
Right.
just being there. So, I mean, I would say like without even being paid, but you got to live, and
Right.
that's illegal nowadays. So
Right. Well, and
take the money.
I was more shadowing than being on
Yeah.
like anything that was being built. I like sat in on meetings and I worked on a design of a sign, but it never got actually used. It was more like busy work because there's not meetings, all the time either. But hearing, oh, they're spending $20,000 or $80,000 on one palm tree. Wow,
Mhm.
like one, but
Yeah.
they're buying like 30 of them. But that's just it is what it is. Like it's not my money. It's not theirs. It's it's the project's money, and it's to get built. And I completely agree on the hard skills aspect of you can't know the code in school. If you spend time in school focusing on the code, it's not going to work. And all of those very technical questions, especially construction, on the very, very technical aspect, yes. But I just feel there's such a gap that there isn't even that stepping stone. Like, we didn't have any classes on how to interview or even what the current market price was. The best they did was, hey, don't take a free internship, always be paid. But that was really it. They didn't quite they gave us no methods or structures or anything of how to actually find a job beyond hosting. I mean, yes, they hosted a career fair, and that like helped some, and I'm sure caught a bunch of people jobs. But even then, it's like there's no prep for that. There's no training in school. Like, isn't school supposed to be that training for that actual real world? And if all of us are just thrust out there with no prep, then why am I paying for the school to just think like how they want me to design rather than how to be the best architect? And like a big issue is many of them just aren't practicing. They're just academics, which is its own bright and its own virtue. But we had no presentation classes, no interviews, no business, no accounting. So they more just wanted us. They really just kind of set us up to like be in Strand. A bunch of
Hmm.
background noise here, I think, if you can hear it.
I can't pick it up.
No? Or
No.
yes? Okay, good. They're like stomping up there. But if not,
Okay.
then that's all good. But they just like, I felt it wasn't the best stepping stone to be out into the career. No, people shouldn't be handheld either. But shouldn't there be some kind of pipeline or integration between these actual practicing firms and the schools that are giving them their future employees? Like, I feel the firms would want some kind of input on having better people also. But you've spoken a bunch about who you are and really how you are about trying to find that meaning and purpose and that being more. So, what's next for Tristy? Like, is this
Mhm.
job is about to come to a close? You're moving in August, right? Or the summer?
July.
July? So, what is next and what kind of meaning are you trying to seek out?
Well, I've noticed from finishing school and working in a real firm that you gain a lot of confidence the more knowledge that you learn. Uh, and so I'm going into this next potential interview. Well, I don't have anything set up yet, but my mindset going into the next interview that I'm going to eventually have to have is going to be more about what I want, I would say, and me kind of interviewing the company more so. Because, when you come out of college, it's kind of like, all right, I'm going to go to this interview and answer their questions and be like the best candidate. I mean, I feel like I'm still going to do that, but I think there's going to be more emphasis what I want out of a, because after a while, you start having some value to your field and to companies that are trying to get you, that you should start forming your own expectations of what you want out of a firm. And for me, the big thing, like I said earlier, is philosophy of the whole. We had this professional practice class where the professor asked us, like, what's the most important aspect of a firm? A lot of people put like the culture of the firm, which, yeah, that's important. I put down the philosophy of the firm because that seems like the biggest thing that keeps me interested in a firm. Is it's got to be a firm that is, I mean, it has lots of design emphasis. It grows and evolves, uh, in a design fashion. And it's constantly trying to at least push some kind of bounds. Like it's not stagnant, because there are firms out there that are cool, just getting good projects, getting good jobs, and paying their employees good. You have the bonuses and everything, but the philosophy doesn't really push itself. I mean, you're putting together what the client wants, but all the things we learned in school about these individuals who had their own beliefs and they pushed it on their own projects. I just feel like it's really hard to find that, and I haven't quite found that. I mean, I'm in a really good firm and they really care about their people, but it's not exactly. I'm getting like some reverb, you Monty.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Echo.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear myself too.
I don't know what's up.
I think it's good. You can't? Oh, I guess it's just me. Because Twitch viewers are saying that they can't hear me. Okay, so we're good. Or was I? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go into Wisconsin, and my objective is to find the firm that suits me. I came out of college in a position to where it's like, I just need to get in the field and do the grunt work and get more experience on my resume. But now I feel like I'm in a different position to where I can start demanding things from firms, or at least just find the firm that fits what I demand. So that's a transition that I think all students need to make pretty soon in their career. I mean, as soon as you feel comfortable doing it, but you shouldn't wait too long. You shouldn't be that guy in my first firm who's been there 8 years, cool, just doing construction documents, unless you just like to, annotate production home. Maybe he did. But if you're trying to progress yourself, like, take care of yourself out there. Firms will continue to do their own thing. But if you're trying to find yourself in this field, know your worth and continue to grow. Don't die. Don't become stagnant, because stagnation is death.
Amen. Bro, that is just spot on, because who is going to be your biggest advocate beyond yourself. Like it must start with us, and I'd argue, yes, if you have zero experience at all, you can't be too picky, but you should be as picky as you possibly can at every stage of it. And even in those jobs, they'll only give you as little as they possibly can to stay. They won't give you more and more and more based off of even increased productivity. It's like, no, here's like the minimum we can keep people around that, because also architecture is a very brutal business model. It's some pretty slim margins. It's not like these fees we command are NX our costs. It's more typically in line with the payout. You know, like most of the fees go towards salaries and like people who are on the project. Like that's typically how those people are even paid. You know, because we cut the fee, so it's okay. Now we can pay you. You know, and like people are on a salary, but still kind of that illusion of where that money is actually coming from. And so you, it's a great story, and it's especially starting off with just that feeling of angst and wanting to find something better and being, oh, I'm a bit artistic, and then grandma's like, oh, hey, don't stop at all, and then like a fucking aptitude test, which still you don't even know why or when you actually took it, but that term architect really stuck in you, and then that carried through to, okay, in high school there's classes and clubs with the term architect and architecture. What is that? And then you're in it, and in Skills USA you have just the biggest high of all time, it sounds like, of building what they call it construction. That's amazing, because just like building out of hands. I mean, every person has and knows what a hand is, especially a kid or teenager. And then building not even a building, but the Loch Ness monster is something like cool and fun. You know, it's like, okay, and I can actually be the one to orchestrate that. Brought you into, okay, basically kind of what's the closest school, and that's UTA. And in school was more of that churning and and learning, but especially our partner project in Wheats really showed us how both of us, and through giving up some of that power to others and trusting it, that they might have a better or different skill set, that okay, this can be greater because there's now twice as much time in it, you know, and effort. And both of us really even put in more time than almost any other project individually, just because we felt that honor to us, to the project, and the weed also, because he was as crucial of any body in really helping us cultivate that project. But then you hit the real world first, like pretty easily, because a person just walks in and is like, here's a job. But then it's like, it becomes that easy. Do you kind of like learn that lesson, you know? And over about what 2 years there, it just really like turns you out through really not having that ambition and purpose, and being able to see it even long term. Because all in all, 8 years, that's how long we've known each other. It's not that, you know, like it can go by pretty quickly, but if there's, or it can feel like like hell, and so it's like quite inspiring to know that you go through what you deem worthy hardship, but then also said, no, I'm just going to be unemployed and figure it out. And then you found a place that truly breathes life back into you and found, okay, well, it is senior housing, but that's actually could be very beautiful because often these people can't be housed at their families. So where are they going to be? And that extra care in it, rather than just being about the business. And then that's to where we are now of, well, kind of everything is at your grasp. It's like, yes, there are only so many firms out there, but we're at the close to tipping point of being licensed, or at least between the five or so of us. Once one of us kind of has one in a state, we can really push even harder and operate as a group rather than just these individuals for other people. So in that kind of recap, was there anything I missed, or anything else you just feel must be said?
That was beautiful. You do great at interviewing.
Oh, thank you.
I think you got it all there.
Yeah,
And as closing statement, know your worth.
know your worth. And
Real.
a big point here is to really expose that gap between college and school by telling these stories of, okay, I'm graduated, I have some debt, my parents had these other jobs, or even the same job but in a whole other generation, so I'm kind of out here
Yeah.
all alone, and that sense of community is quite gone, like unless you hopefully have a good group of friends, but most people like just scatter, and I like it's crucial to know, what are other people being paid, what's their job like, do I want to work there, are they hiring, and like all of those aspects. It's just very blind, and even applying on LinkedIn, ArcaNect, or whatever, it's still even more blind of, I'm applying with 200 other people, so hopefully we'll see. And I think firms do really care about that personal story, or they should hopefully care about the person they're actually really hiring, rather than how fast can you draft and how accurate are you. Because also stuff just gets missed, prices change. Like this is a constantly evolving thing that there is no right or wrong. The only wrong is just lack of communication. Because if you're lying, then obviously that's wrong. But if I drew something wrong or it changed, that's not the end of the world either. It's just all because we're trying to take a physical, turn it into digital, and then make it physical again. For at least the more rehab. But even building brand new, it's taking something that doesn't exist on a site that does exist, and then making it, all these pieces come together. Have you heard or seen the video? I forget who did it, but it was more on economics, and he just holds up a basic number 2 pencil and says, not one person knows how to make this pencil.
Yeah.
And how the graphite, the wood, the paint, the steel, or the aluminum, the rubber, it's all very specialized and all from all different parts. And like, that's just a pencil, and here there's a building, and that's a big pencil. But but I want to try and expose that gap, and it sounds like knowing that worth through communicating as a community what everybody's being offered and paid. But then in school, there should be some interview practice. There should be some kind of, I mean, you did have like the professional practice class as a graduate, and that's more of the structure of UTA and how they operate. But even in undergrad, like you shouldn't force someone to have 6 years of education and then go get a job and try and do it. You know, like there should be that stepping stone in between. And I'm not even saying that school should give you every practical trade information. No, but how to get a job seems quite crucial,
Yeah.
and it's quite lacking on even a method of how to find it, because our professors also couldn't hire us. But thank you so much for the time, and
Yeah.
it was a great story. I mean, I've known you now 7-8 years, and like I didn't know a good amount of this, you know, and
Yeah.
even like
Now everyone does.
right the whole yeah, our great grandchildren, if they survive the nuclear
The AI
fallout.
apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you
Yeah.
so much, and I look forward to just all of our work with each other, because you are legit, and thank you.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Just like Wheat's class.
Yes.
And
But
thank you.
let's.
You do great at this. I'm excited for the other interviews coming up.
Oh, I'm
Any
just
of people in our group that hasn't signed up, y'all get
right.
in on that.
Amen.
That's good
Amen.
stuff. And someone's got to interview you.
Yeah, I know, right?
Has anyone signed up for that yet?
Not yet. I'll just do myself,
Yeah,
like
just
back and
just
forth.
like pre-record or
Yeah.
something.
No. It'll be great. But ideally more in person, because you can just be it's a bit more intimate, you know, rather than like on the screen. But this was a great start, and thank you for being the first, and getting my project rolling
Of course,
here. All right.
for having me.
My pleasure. We'll have a great weekend, bro, and I'm sure we'll speak Wednesday, if not sooner.
Yes, sir. The
Yes,
weather's
sir.
beautiful today. You have
Yeah.
a good weekend over there on the beach too.
Oh, I will. I'm about to spend the
Yes.
rest of the afternoon outside, if possible.
Nice.
All
All
right.
right, Monty. See you
Hasta
later,
la
man.
vista.